A killer who wanted to be caught, but never was. He didn't hide from the police. He didn't try to disappear quietly. Instead, he made sure the world knew he existed. He wrote letters. He sent codes. He described his crimes in his own words. And somehow, even after all of that, no one ever found him. This is the story of the Zodiac Killer. It began on a cold night, December 20th, 1968, along a quiet stretch of road known as Lake Herman Road in Northern California. It was the kind of place teenagers would go to be alone, far from the noise of the city. That night, two high school students sat parked in their car, unaware that someone was watching them. At some point, another vehicle pulled up nearby. What happened next took only seconds. Shots were fired. The victims never had a chance to escape. When police arrived, there were no witnesses, no clear suspects, and no obvious motive. Just silence. And the beginning of something far more disturbing. For months, the case went nowhere. It was treated as an isolated incident, random, unconnected, until July 4th, 1969. Another couple parked in a car at Blue Rock Springs Park was approached late at night by a man carrying a flashlight. At first, they thought he might be a police officer, but without warning, he opened fire. The attack was sudden, brutal, and calculated. One of the victims survived long enough to describe what happened. The shooter didn't speak. He didn't panic. He simply walked away, then returned moments later to fire again. It was cold, methodical, almost mechanical. Shortly after the attack, the phone rang at a nearby police station. A man's voice calmly reported the crime. He gave precise details about the location, the victims, and how it happened. Then, almost casually, he added something chilling. He claimed responsibility for both attacks. For the first time, investigators realized they were not dealing with random violence. There was a connection, a pattern, and behind it, someone who wanted to be heard. Just weeks later, that became undeniable. In August 1969, 3 major newspapers received nearly identical letters. Each one was written by the same person. The writer claimed responsibility for the killings and demanded that his message be published on the front page. If his demand was ignored, he threatened to continue killing. Inside each letter was something else. A cipher. A coded message made up of strange symbols carefully arranged as if it were part of a larger puzzle. It wasn't just communication. It was a challenge. He wasn't just committing crimes. He was creating a game. The letters were published. The public became involved. Amateur code breakers across the country began trying to solve the message. Eventually, a school teacher and his wife managed to decode it. What they found was unsettling. The message didn't reveal his identity. Instead, it revealed his mindset. He claimed that killing people was more thrilling than hunting animals, that humans were the most dangerous game, and that those he killed would become his slaves in the afterlife. But even after all that, he still didn't tell anyone who he was. He signed the letter with a strange symbol, a circle with a cross through it. From that moment on, the killer had a name, Zodiac, and the case would never be the same again. In September 1969, another attack took place, this time at Lake Berryessa. But this one was different. The killer didn't strike from a distance. He approached his victims wearing a black execution-style hood with the Zodiac symbol stitched onto the chest. He spoke calmly. He claimed to be an escaped prisoner. He tied the victims up. And then, he stabbed them. Repeatedly. It was personal. Controlled. Before leaving, he walked to their car and wrote a message on the door. Dates. Locations. A record of his previous attacks. It was as if he was documenting his own crimes, making sure they would never be forgotten. Then came the most dangerous moment of all. October 1969. San Francisco. A taxi driver named Paul Stein picked up a passenger. The ride seemed normal, just another fare in a quiet neighborhood. But when they reached the destination, the passenger pulled out a gun and shot him in the head. This time, there were witnesses. People saw the suspect leaving the scene. Police were called immediately. But due to a mistake in the description broadcast over the radio, officers were told to look for someone else. The killer walked right past them, close enough to be stopped, close enough to be caught, and yet he slipped away. Days later, another letter arrived. Inside, the killer included a piece of the victim's shirt. Proof. He mocked the police, described how easily he had escaped. He wasn't just committing crimes anymore. He was playing with the system. Over the following months and years, more letters continued to arrive. Some included new ciphers. Others contained threats. In one message, he claimed he would attack a school bus. In another, he hinted that the number of victims was much higher than anyone realized. Whether those claims were true, no one could confirm. The ciphers became one of the most frustrating aspects of the case. While the first was solved relatively quickly, others remained unsolved for decades. One of them, known as the 340 cipher, wasn't cracked until 2020, more than 50 years later, and even then, it revealed no identity, just more fragments of a disturbed mind. Then, something strange happened. The letters slowed down, the attacks stopped, and eventually, the Zodiac Killer disappeared. No arrest, no confession, no explanation. The investigation continued for decades. Hundreds of suspects were considered. Some seemed convincing. Some had circumstantial evidence, but none could ever be proven beyond doubt. In 2016, the case was effectively closed by the FBI after years of dead ends. But even today, it continues to be reopened, re-examined, and debated. Because something about this case refuses to fade. Maybe it's the mystery. Maybe it's the fear. Or maybe it's the fact that he wanted us to keep looking. He didn't just kill. He communicated. He turned violence into a message. And that message was never fully understood. Because in the end, we were left with nothing but questions. Who was he? How many victims were there really? And why did he want to be seen, but never caught? More than half a century later, we're still asking those same questions. And somewhere, hidden behind a symbol, a cipher, or a name that was never real, the truth about the Zodiac Killer still exists, waiting to be uncovered. Or perhaps never meant to be found at all.